Hello and welcome to Wellness Coach. My name is Stefan Ravalli, a host here in Wellness Coach, and today's discussion is on digital detox. I'm joined today by our expert coach, Tony Saccardi. Hello, Tony. It's good to see you again.
Hey, Stefan. Hi, everyone. Welcome. So how about we start with coming here, just being here together?
that
That'd be a
sounds
good way to start.
that sounds pretty good to me.
Okay, all right. So just the time to arrive here all together. So I'm inviting you to take a comfortable position. If you're sitting on a chair, to have your feet flat on the floor, your spine relatively straight, and to let your hands rest on your lap. And if that's comfortable for you, to close your eyes or soften your gaze. And simply relaxing, coming into the present, into your body, feeling what it feels like with your feet on the floor, the contact between your body and the chair, relaxing your jaw, your shoulders, your back, and feeling your breath, the movement of your breathing, your belly and your chest rising up and falling down as you inhale and you exhale. Simply being here right now, connecting with your body, with your breath, using it as an anchor to stay present. And whenever you're ready, simply open your eyes and see if you can stay connected while we are together with your breath and your body and stay in the present moment. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Tony. And definitely let us know, guys, how that experience was for you. You can let us know because this is an interactive discussion today. You can use the Q&A box and the chat box to pose any questions you have. And also put up your hand. We can talk directly to you. Anytime you have a question about anything, use these features and tap into the expertise of our wonderful coach, Tony, today. And just a reminder, though, this is not a function that works on YouTube. We're so glad to talk to you, but we can't interact with you. Unfortunately, you have to download the app from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. And welcome to those of you just joining us. Hello, Barbara, Carolina, and Pinja and Wendy. Great to see you guys again. Really looking forward to today's discussion with you, Tony, because you have such a rich background in technology. And we're going to talk about digitally detoxing, which I guess means eliminating all technology from your life, except this particular app. Everything else is unhealthy. So you have such a, you've been in tech since tech existed almost, or like the tech that defines our reality today, this information technology. So you've seen it grow and evolve. You've seen our relationship to it grow and evolve. So where are we today, and what needs to change?
I think where we are today is really fascinating. So I started in tech before we had personal computers, um, before we had the internet, before we had smartphones and social media. So I've seen it coming, and I've seen how it has changed our lives gradually. And I don't find anything wrong with it. I don't think we would have been better without it. But the thing is like everything else. It's like, too much TV, too much social media can be detrimental to us. And on the other hand, with all the knowledge or the possibilities right at your fingertips, you could really nourish yourself and grow. So there is good and bad about having access to so many things at once. And when we talk about digital detox, I guess it's because more of our lives today is about spending time in front of a screen. So whether it's a computer or a smartphone, we have a lot more screen time than we used to. and we have a lot less of time alone in nature, time with our family, time with our friends. And I think that's where digital detox becomes important. It's to be able to see that, I'm missing something. Something is not quite in my life the way it should be, and having the capability to change that, to spend more time in nature with friends and family.
All right. So it's not about eliminating technology or going even through periods of abstinence. It's about understanding our relationship to it, refining it.
I think that's what it is. It may be necessary for someone to go into detox if you're really addicted to your phone and you cannot live like without looking at it. Then maybe you need that. Maybe you need to go for a weekend or a week without it. Maybe to a silent retreat or something like this, just to break the habit. But for most people, that's not the case. There is certainly an abuse of social media and smartphones and so on. But for most people, it's possible to cut down on it, to simply cut down and do other things.
All right. And Lindsay, our moderators, left a question in the chat box for you guys. We're curious, what devices, apps, general technology things do you spend too much time on? Or don't you? Do you actually manage to avoid these things, and how do you do that? So
You
yeah,
know,
and actually, yeah.
another way to ask would be like, because we spend so much time with all those devices, is what do you do that's not connected to a device?
Yeah. Let's go the other way, right? Like, yeah, where in your life don't you have your phone on you or like actually in your hand? So many times I notice I'm just holding my phone and I'm like, why am I even holding this right now? This
Hmm.
doesn't need to be cradled like a baby. I can be doing
Hmm.
something with just my body and my
Hmm.
senses without
Hmm.
this phone involved.
Exactly. I mean, a very good example is when we are traveling. So we take the transportation, the bus or something, and now automatically we look at the phone. Everybody's doing that, looking at something to get busy because we don't want to waste that time. But before, during that time, when we would take the train or the bus, we would maybe talk to someone. Maybe we would look at the landscape and, like you say, get in touch with our senses and the experience. Or maybe we would read a book. But today it's kind of like, okay, I'm going to check my emails again.
Right, right. So So yeah, I guess we need to kind of understand what it is we would like to be doing like outside of technology and see if we're doing enough of it, right? Like I mean, I guess we all want we want connection with others. We
Hmm.
don't just like if we were to think like what do we want to do with our day? We probably wouldn't say like I just want to be on social media all day. There's probably stuff we actually want to do.
Hmm.
So maybe think about that. Is that a good idea to maybe think about that first? And then you can look at like whether or not your technology is getting actually in the way of that.
Is your technology preventing you from the experience?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, a question about that, because I'm curious about your perspective. Why, when all of these experiences are richer, they're like, we're using our senses, we're using our body, we're using more of our mind maybe to
Hmm.
experience the richness of reality. Why is like a little two-dimensional, like digital thing that much more alluring than that?
Yeah, I think it's just the ease, like it's so easy. And by nature, we want to spend as little energy as possible. So when we are on autopilot, that's what's going to happen. The brain is going to direct us to the place where we spend as little energy as possible. That's going to be the TV, that's going to be the smartphone, the screen. And unfortunately, when we do that, we are making our brain lazier and lazier. Like it doesn't want to make any efforts anymore. All the information is at our fingertips. So we just Google something and we can find information. We barely need to memorize something. We barely know how things work and how to explain them because it's so easy to go to the Wikipedia or somewhere else like that. So this is where it's like we're not exercising the brain enough today because of digital media, because it's so easy.
Right. And first we got a comment from Carolina. She says that she isn't using technology when she exercises and when she plays with her
Hmm.
son. How about you, Tony? When are you not using technology? When is that like what areas of your life um do you have like technologically free and like it's like maybe even set out like that deliberately?
Yeah, so of course, like going to yoga, for example, to a class or to a meditation class or yoga class, going to exercise, walking in nature. When I am in nature, and often I try to be in nature to go to the places I really like, I make it a point not to use my smartphone, except sometimes to take a picture. If there's something really cool, I won't take a picture of it. But I don't check my emails or texts or anything like that while I'm walking in nature. And trying also to spend more one-on-one time with friends and family, um, and really valuing that. And the other thing I was talking about before is like when I travel, I try not to be glued to my screen and really look at the landscape outside. And it doesn't matter if it's, you know, taking the local bus and going through places I've been before. Just looking around, looking at people, and using my senses, like you were saying, is really makes a big difference. It's like I feel totally different than when I'm looking at the screen.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do we know that we have an unhealthy relationship to technology? Are there like explicit signs we can see, or maybe subtler signs that we're using technology too much?
When you wake up in the morning, what's your first action?
Yeah, and that defines the rest of the day, right? As they say, like
Yeah, yeah,
the first thing you do defines the rest of the day.
yeah.
Yeah.
Are you able to get up without looking at what's going on your phone and do a couple of things, like maybe all the way to having your breakfast without looking? Or are you already looking at what's going on, meetings, emails, and text and so on?
All right, absolutely. And I think I want to ask everyone a question now too about if, technology was absent. If you woke up and you didn't have a phone to grab, all of a sudden like technological blackout, let's say society continued to function though somehow, but there was nothing there. What would you want to do with your time? Like what would be so, what would be the most important to you? And I guess Tony, you've already mentioned a few things, but if anything else comes to mind, what you would do with your day in a technology-free life. I think it's an interesting question.
Yeah. Are you asking me this question?
Yeah, actually, I
And
am.
everybody else. Okay, so I love it. So I love to do things where technology is not involved, and to me, walking is one of them. Going to places I've never been before, especially with other people. And the thing is that it's so easy to get distracted, and when it's not technology, it's going to be your own mind, or it's going to be like, you know, maybe conversations about everything that could go bad and fixing the world and so on. I think it's nice sometimes to have silence inside and outside, and really experiencing the senses when you are outside and walking around. Um, so to me, it would be no devices. I would go outside and enjoy nature.
Great. All right. And knowing all of this, knowing like what technology-free life looks like, what value do you think technology brings to it? Like what does it look like when we're using technology in a healthy way?
I think it's more intentional, and it's so much a mirror of what's inside in our mind. So when we try to meditate, for example, we try to focus on our breath, on our body, and our mind wants to go somewhere else. It wants to have like an imaginary conversation with someone, you know, our boss or partner or whatever. It wants to create a story like where we're going to do this and we're going to do that and fix this and fix that, or encounter some obstacles. There's all that stuff going on in our mind all the time, and keeping us from staying focused on something or from being present when we take a walk in nature, for example. And it's kind of the same thing with social media. If we could be intentional and use it to acquire more knowledge, to communicate with our friends who are far away and family and so on, or look at things that are really inspiring, then that would be one thing. But the tendency is to go for the easy stuff. to follow the links mindlessly and go from one cat video to the next, and then we find ourselves like at midnight, like totally depleted, and having watched things that don't make any sense. So this is where the difference between is between using it intentionally for your own good versus going with the easy flow.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I'm curious because we were talking earlier in the like in the pre-discussion before the show went live on YouTube that we tend to be seeking distraction anyway, whether or not technology exists. It's not technology that makes us want to be distracted. We just wanted to begin with. Technology simply gave us what we already wanted.
Mhm.
So, what practices actually work, at the core of this problem we have? I don't know if it's a problem, but like this innate need to escape reality. Um, in maybe in the realms of meditation and mindfulness,
Mm.
what can we do to just become less interested in being distracted, so to speak?
Yeah, that's a very interesting one. And there is a wonderful book by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi called The Flow. And in his book, he talks about what makes life really interesting, what makes people feel like they're living a life to the fullest. And he calls that being in the flow. And what he talks about in that too is the fact that our mind will make us crazy. Left to its own device, the mind will go into chaos. And we don't want that. So we're looking for anything, any distraction, but to be alone with our mind. And and I believe there is some truth to that. That when we are left alone, we have absolutely nothing to do. Then our mind goes uh, into gear and then takes us to all kinds of places, but tends to go into entropy, into chaos. And that's a really painful experience. And so we avoid that by distractions. And the distractions are telling stories to ourselves, um, going into the digital world, especially social media, or watching the tube. But another way to get distracted from that can be useful to us is to actually read an interesting book, having an interesting conversation with a friend, or doing something that helps us grow.
Right. And I guess like that logic of just saying like, well, the mind, left alone, it'll just drift off and or just go crazy. That kind of basically makes us um always having to be doing, always having to be like doing things that have us in the flow without, just taking a moment and chilling out or just enjoying where we are.
Yeah.
Or does actually like being in nature or meditating count as doing things that are more in the flow? They're just more low impact.
Well, when you meditate, you learn to control that. You learn to control your mind and not let it go in autopilot. And when you are doing something that's a little bit difficult, like if you're studying, learning something new, same thing, you kind of like training the mind to stay focused. And that's really helpful. When you're not doing that, then you're watching the tube or you're doing something easy. You're not training your brain to be focused. You're giving up, and when you do that, you're kind of encouraging your brain to be lazy and to go into autopilot. So that's the difference between the two, and that's why meditation is so important. Or staying focused is very important.
All right, guys, let us know any other questions you have about digitally detoxing here. Tap into Tony's endless well of mindfulness and tech knowledge as well. We're just about at the 20-minute mark, but a couple more questions here if you have time, Tony, so we can keep the discussion
Mhm.
going about technology since there's so much to crack into. But definitely, guys, if go if you need to go, since we've covered a lot already today. So, in terms of general best practices for managing our technology relationship, if we haven't any you haven't already mentioned that you would suggest for just daily habits to get into that will you know um, keep our
Yeah.
relationship healthy.
So very simple. I would say do not let it be the first thing you see in the morning. So give yourself some time in the morning, maybe 10 minutes to meditate or make a nice breakfast for yourself. Do something else, but don't go for the social media and the text and the emails first thing in the morning. The other thing is like before going to bed, maybe an hour if you can, or at least half an hour before you go to bed. Give up on all the screens, the TV, the phones, and everything else, and do something else, like reading a book, for example, a book of poetry, or looking at nice reproductions of paintings or whatever, but something that's different from the usual screen. And if you can do that, that already is a step forward, a big step forward. And the more you do it, the more control you will have over the digital world.
Definitely. And also a question about, when one is traveling or just generally out and about in the world.
Mhm.
We tend to use our phones to document the experience, not just stopping occasionally to like take a picture of a butterfly or a bird or an amazing something. Sometimes it's constant documenting, to the point where like we're always either taking notes. I take a lot of notes. I use a lot of
Mhm.
Evernote. I'm not a picture guy. Like when I go traveling, I never have my camera out and people think I'm
Mhm.
weird. I'm just doing stuff,
Mhm. Mhm.
But other people are constantly documenting everything. I mean, that's like social media. You're looking at this and being like, was this person ever even living, or were they just filming and taking pictures the whole time?
Mhm.
What's a way of managing our need to document our experiences and export them to the world?
Yeah, so it's quantity versus quality, in my opinion. Let's take an example. People go to the beach, and let's say there is. Last time we saw an elephant seal on the beach, which is totally incredible. And a lot of people were coming by and taking a look at it and started to take pictures, and then went away. And I'm trying to think, like, what is it that they remember about that encounter? Did they feel the energy of that incredible animal? Did they realize how big it was? Did they look at the small movements, how it breathes and how it moves? And so there is all that going on. So you can have like maybe 50 pictures of different angles, but you haven't really realized what the encounter was about. One thing that I used to ask the people I was working with to do uh, to enhance their capacity to connect with what's outside is to stop taking pictures and to try to draw something. So to take a pen and a piece of paper and to the best of your ability to draw what you're seeing. So, and that can be anything. It can be a flower, a piece of garlic or whatever in your kitchen, a shell. If you find something like this and you take the time to try to draw it, you don't need to be good. It doesn't matter. What matters is like you're going to look at it from a totally different angle. You're going to really, really look at it. And when you really, really look at something, you realize all sort of things that you would have never seen before. And that's the difference between using your gadget to take pictures and really looking at things.
Wow, that's so simple. I never even thought of that because the phone does all the observing work for you. And when you're drawing, you have to be the observer. And actually, even if you're a professional photographer using a camera, you're always adjusting. You'd even be looking at things more thoroughly. But these phones with these like
Mhm.
just their presettings and everything's just kind of done.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
it's
Another
that's
example is when you go to a museum and you see all these people taking a picture of themselves, next to a famous painting. It's it's missing the point. The point would be to go to a museum and maybe go in one room only, stop in front of one painting and stay there for more than 10 minutes, really looking at it and see what you observe, what's going on. There's a big message that's been transmitted to you from someone who did that, like maybe 200 or 300 years ago. And you cannot get that if you just take a picture or look at it quickly and then move on. So uh, things require more attention. The things around us, they require more of attention, more time, if we really want to connect with it and get something from it.
Yeah, that's great. Such a simple shift to like just actually live in our reality. So, yeah, thank you so much for that, Tony. I guess we're about at the 25-minute mark. So I'll pass things over to you now if you'd like to close things out with a practice to send everyone out into our technological world.
Yeah, and again, meditation is wonderful. It's about controlling the mind and not letting it go on autopilot. And the more you do that, the more you'll be able to control your digital self. So let's get back into position, finding the comfortable position, feet flat on the floor, spine upright, hands on your lap. And when you're ready, close your eyes. And settle into your own body, feeling your feet on the floor, your hands on your lap, the contact between your body and the chair, and simply observing what's going on in your body, the subtle movement of your breath, maybe some tension in your face, your jaw. Simply being aware of your body and your breath and staying with it. Thoughts will come in. Try to take your attention away into a narrative, conversation, a story, and simply let it go without any judgment and stay with your focus, with your breath and your body. And remember that any time during the day, even while you're walking or even speaking with someone, you can always come back to your anchor to the present using your breath and your body. Now, when you're ready, slowly come back. You can wiggle your toes, your fingers, stretch if you feel like it, and then slowly, gently open your eyes. Thanks, everyone. Namaste.